Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you here with us today. I've been a hairdresser for many years and I've had the privilege of working in many different countries. I've had a great career and I 100% believe that salon owners are the backbone of the industry. You survive and thrive through determination and hard work, and you deserve to win and you deserve to succeed, because every day you get up and you do it all again by serving and taking care of your clients and serving and taking care of your team and coming up with new ideas about what it takes to run a successful salon business. And we are here to help you in any way that we can. So thank you for joining us here again today. Video versions of our podcasts are now also available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to put faces to the names, then head on over to Grow My Salon Business on YouTube and like and subscribe to the channel. Or if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, leave us a review or share the podcast with those who you know will benefit from our message. So with that said, on with today's show. Now, my guest today is Hellen Ward, who, as well as being a hairdresser, she's a wife, a mother, a author, lecturer, educator, and she's also the managing director and co-founder, along with her husband, Richard Ward, of the Richard Ward Hair and Metro Spa, located in the heart of London's Chelsea. Helen is highly regarded in the industry, not just for having built a great business, but also for her passion and commitment and common sense insights and advice when it comes to the UK hairdressing industry. In today's podcast, we're going to discuss the meaning of luxury in the salon industry, having royalty as part of your clientele, and the challenges and opportunities that the industry is facing today and into the future, and lots more. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Helen.
Lovely to see you. At last, we get to do this. We were going to do it in lockdown, remember?
That was a long time ago, wasn't it? The world had before and after moments, and lockdown is definitely that was the cause of the before and after. It's a reference for everything that we do now, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so listen, I am going to jump in and throw a question at you, which is a little bit of a curveball, but I know that you probably haven't been asked it before and that you'll very comfortably be able to answer it. So here it is. If Richard Ward was a clothing brand, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'd like to say Chanel or Zadig and Voltaire, but I think they're a bit too highbrow. So I would say it would probably be a Belstaff.
Okay, all right, you surprised me there. What about magazine? If you were a magazine, what magazine would you be?
I've got to say Vogue, haven't I?
I thought you'd go with Vogue, or maybe Harper's Bazaar. Restaurant?
Too snooty, Harper's Bazaar.
Right, okay.
Restaurant, well, it was my daughter's birthday yesterday and we went to Langan's.
Okay.
And I'm an old-fashioned girl. I like the Ritz, I like Langan's, I like the Wolseley. So, yes, one of those three.
All right. I would have said you were the Wolseley, without a doubt. Or, throw the Ritz in there as well. Okay. Well, I often use those analogies when I talk to salon owners to get them to anchor in their mind who their target market is and to recognize that their target market isn't everyone. And I suppose what I'm doing here is I'm introducing Richard Ward, because you've obviously positioned Richard Ward as a luxury brand and you do it really well. So the question I want to start off with asking you is, how do you define what luxury means in the hairdressing sector?
Wow, what a good question. And interestingly, when I do my consultancy work, I do the same thing, Anthony. I say, if you were an airline or a supermarket, which one would you be? Because I don't believe that there's any wrong answer in that.
No, there's not.
You can be cheap and you can be fast. What you can't be is cheap, fast, and good. You can't be all three.
Exactly.
So you've got to pick two. So we try to be good. We just aim at good, right? Let's just have it there. We aim at good because I think I think we've seen a massive decrease in the people doing the luxury premium end of things in our sector. And that's sad. When you see a big name disappear, even if they're a rival of ours, it's never a good thing. I don't like to see any of these high profile luxury brands not exist anymore. This is not good for anybody. And people will... I remember I had an argument with the GM of a very big manufacturers, one that we deal with a lot, at the when there was the insurgent of all the blow dry bars. And he was saying, this is the future. People want to be in and out. They want a blow dry bar. This is the future of hairdressing. And I said, that's like the future of flying is only EasyJet or Ryanair. Because to assume that people want to be cheap and fast is so incorrect. Let people decide for themselves. Because price doesn't sort of equate to value, in my opinion. So the meal we had last night, Langan's, very expensive, gorgeous, you know, but worth every penny. The service was impeccable. The food was delicious. I didn't have to remind them it was her birthday. Everything was laid out for us when we got there. So was it value for money? Yes, it was value for money. And I think Richard Ward we set out to be just to give the type of hairdressing that people really wanted from where we are. We're in Chelsea, we're a Chelsea brand, we've always been known for that. And our clientele want a luxury experience and they want beautiful couture hair. And that's what we give them. And, you know, Richard was up many times in his career for British Hairdresser of the Year. He never won. And if you ask him why he didn't win, he would say, I don't care about the sort of hair like those other people do, like Angela, people like Angela, who I just hold up there in my, you know, who I just think is just the master of our craft. But, you know, Angelo Seminara lives, eats and breathes that very technical, cutting, hairdressing, avant-garde type of work. It's not what we do. And so I think we've always sort of, by the industry, been sort of dissed a little bit for the fact that we are high-end, beautiful blow dries, luxury hair. It's quite long, the sort of hair we're known for. We are not spiky little geometric bobs. It's not what we do.
Exactly.
And I get it that someone else wants to be really good at that, but it's not what we do.
No, and I think that what's important is to understand who you are and who your target market is and what, you know, what positioning you want to take in the industry. And I think you have clearly defined, you know, what the Richard Ward brand is all about. But I'm aware that for, you know, this podcast, that we have a lot of listeners in the UK, but we also have a lot of listeners in the United States and Australia. We've got listeners in over 70 different countries every week. And so a lot of them will not understand or will not know necessarily about Richard Ward Hair and Metro Spa. So before we dig into the detail for the rest of the podcast, can you just give us an overview of what the Richard Ward Salon is all about? How big it is, how many staff, how many clients you do, what sort of general revenue you turn over in a year, just so that people get some context to everything else that we speak about.
Sure. So we're in the heart of Chelsea. We're in Sloane Square. We have one site, only one salon. The salon is 5,000 square feet. It turns over £6.5 million gross a year out of the one site. That's not including our wet line that we sell in Waitrose, our shampoo range or anything like that. That's just turnover from the services in that shop, in that salon. We have I suppose our ethos is that we have this very amazing long-standing team. So most of the senior team have been with us either since we started or we have grown them up. So it's not unusual for a senior stylist, for example, to have had 20 years service with us. In fact, most of the team have. So we have this... I'm going to say, sometimes when I'm asked what I do, I say I run a kindergarten for grown-ups because anyone who's in our industry knows what it's a family business. We are a family, and with a family comes fallouts. You know, there is never a time when everybody is speaking to everybody. But being the largest independent hair and beauty salon in the UK, which we are, you've got to expect that. So I'm like the matriarch. I just want all my siblings, all my babies, all my children to love each other. Most of the time they do. But like when siblings fall out, we're fiercely protective. So even if one person isn't speaking to another person, if anyone else was to slag off that person, it would be fisticuffs, It's a great environment. They're a lovely bunch. We've all been together so long. And it is a real family business. And I know we're not a family business like the Moscolos, for instance, but in our own way we are. Nando, Fiona, Gavin, Julie, they've all been with us since the day we started.
How many?
And from them, they've trained and, we've just bloomed from this team of 5 to now we have just shy of 100 employees.
Right, okay. And when you said, just for reference for our predominantly American audience, when you said revenue of 6-point-something million a year?
6.5 million gross.
Right, okay, so that's about $8 million US. And I always qualify what you mean when you say turnover, because in the UK and Australia, a lot of the world, we use the word turnover, whereas Americans tend to not use that. They use the word revenue or total sales, because when you say turnover, they think that you're talking about staff leaving. So it's always interesting how we use the same, we speak the same language, but sometimes we use words in completely different contexts. So
let's just clarify. It's 6.5 million British UK pounds going into our till a year.
In one salon.
And we do 1,300 services a week.
Wow. Okay. So that is a big business and a very busy business. So in terms of price point, just give me one reference for, say, a haircut and a blow dry. I know you've got a range of prices, but what would a haircut and a blow dry start at? What would the bottom price be? What would the top price be?
So 50 is the cheapest and 350 with Richard is the most expensive.
Okay.
So the price tiering thing, how we remain affordable is we have an ethos which is that I don't believe any hairdresser can be a jack of all trades, right, and a master of none. So they have to decide when we're training them, after they've completed our Richard Ward Level 1, our trainees, they have to decide whether they're going to do cutting and styling or whether they're going to do technical, and they cannot do both. So they have to decide what they're going to be, and it's pretty much based on if you would go to any wonderful restaurant, Marcus Waring, for instance. You wouldn't have the grill chef trying to be the pastry chef. You wouldn't have the sous chef trying to be the grill chef. You would have your area of expertise. Now, the whole expertise thing, the reason we've encouraged that is twofold. One is because we can enable our customers to pick the price point for them. So, for instance, if someone's cut is the most important thing and they want to see Nando, who I believe is the best hairdresser of his generation, even better than Richard, which Richard would say himself. So Nando would be like one down from Richard, and Christiana, our artistic director, either of them. They could choose that price point. But if their highlights were not that important to them, they could choose a graduate technician to make it affordable. And that goes always round. So that's one reason. It keeps it affordable for the customer. And that could be that they want to see our technical director and our education director. And of course, then it's going to be a higher price point. It could be that they want to see an apprentice stylist and a graduate. So that they can make it as affordable as they like. But the most important reason we do that is not really just for the customer and the price point. It is so that if somebody were to leave us, one of the team, which is very rare, touch wood, I'm touching wood as I say this, then there are X many more reasons to stay. So if one of my senior stylists were to leave, the client would then have that decision to make. Well, yes, they have gone, but I do like the way David does my highlights, and I like the way Gina does my waxing, and Vita does my nails, And Kat's done my blow dry before, so really it's only someone for the cut, so I could choose someone else. And that is for customer retention.
Yeah, that's a
So
very
it's
good point.
strategic.
Yeah. Now you just mentioned a whole list of different hair and beauty services. The name of the business is the Richard Ward, Hair
Would.
and Metro Spa.
Yes.
So just explain what that covers, because I've been on your website and it covers an awful lot. You offer a
It
lot of
does.
different services. You offer everything that you could possibly want, basically. So
Yeah.
I'll just
Including
yes.
Reiki and acupuncture and all of those things. So Metro Spa, when beauty has always been important to me. It doesn't bring in lots of money. It's a different beast financially to hair. The numbers are completely different. I dispute anyone trying to tell me the beauty industry is the same as the hair industry. It's not. But the reason we have beauty is for all the reasons I've said. So we offer quick treatments. We offer facials, body treatments, nails, lashes, waxing, etc. And so I was trying to find a word when we moved into the space in 2005, because this is our third site, the one we're in now in Duke of York Square. I was trying to find a word that would set the stall out and market the business correctly for us from the get-go. And I didn't want to make people think they were coming into some sort of Champney style health farm and it was going to be like oxygen tanks and mud slinging and people wearing robes and all the rest of it. So it's not that. So I actually was in a Tesco Metro. And I Tesco Metro, for the people that are overseas will understand, it's Tesco, which is our biggest supermarket, but it's a version that you often find on a high street where it's a very condensed version. So, there's 3 different types of tea bags instead of 27 different types of tea bags. And it's for the people that are coming home from work and they just want key things,
Convenience.
but they know that it's not the full service. And I thought Metro Spa, so I put the 2 words together and trademarked it.
Right. Okay, got it. Now, when you talk about the brand as being luxury, but you'll often drop in that word affordable luxury before it, which is a good thing. And I see from your price perspective that it is affordable luxury as well. But what are some of the service experience touches that make a salon visit a luxury experience? What are the things that you do in Richard Ward that you're maybe not going to find in a more, mid-price point, middle of the road or value salon? What are some of the examples that you could share with us?
Right. I think it's predominantly the standard of your team. And, we have Gavin on the front desk. Gavin is our maitre d'. He knows all the clients' names. He knows what they like. He knows what their name of their dog is, the pooches that are coming in. The expertise of the team, but also the customer service element is really important. I mean, Nick, who runs our bar, he's been with us for 28 years, our barman.
Okay, now you can't just gloss over the fact that you have a licensed bar with a barman
We have a
in
fully
it. Okay,
licensed bar.
all that I'm
fully licensed bar and chef.
yes,
Alex is our
right.
chef.
Okay,
So we're just, clients are sometimes in for a long time or they're working, so they might want breakfast, they might want a sandwich or a wrap or something at lunchtime. The licensed bar, when we moved into our current site in 2005, was something that was really important for me to get. And if anyone out there can sort of chime with this, I'm not bad at filling in forms. I've just filled in my golden visa so I can spend a bit more time in Spain. Nothing is like filling in an alcohol license. It is trees and trees of paper in the UK anyway. But it was worth it because I wanted to be able to bundle up and do a top to toe day and include a glass of champagne, So that was really important for us. But, when clients do come into the bar, which is where they wait, Nick will very often get their order for them before them having to ask. Oh yeah, it's an extra dry cappuccino, extra hot, isn't it? And he'll do it for us. So it's the service, it's the people. The lack of staff turnover is massively important to that. because people want to come in, they want to see the same people, they want to feel free. We have a free to roam policy, go to whoever you want to go to. And we encourage that. We actively encourage that. So if you want to switch from Nando to Cristiano, do it. Nobody's going to, which can be a problem in some salons. It can be a problem. But I think people feel very comfortable. And, for instance, we have Joey, Tommy, they're our next generation of sort of Nando. Electra is an amazing hairdresser. They've all been Richard's junior, Nando's junior. So the clients all know them. They feel very comfortable. And I think that's the key to the retention rate.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were, I'd written down the word maitre d'. I love the fact that you refer to Gavin as the maitre d'. And I was just wondering to myself, what is his job focus? Is it to focus on the client experience? Because if you've got, approximately 100 staff, I can imagine that at any one time, you might have, I'm going to take a guess, 50, 60, 70, 80 potential clients in there at one time. So as the maitre d', like a good maitre d' in a restaurant, they're over everything, but they're very much focused on the client experience, as opposed to if he was called the general manager. Would he be more focused on the staff?
I do have
so you have a different.
I do have a GM.
Okay.
So Julie is my GM in the office, and she is accounts, finance, ordering, stock. She's not a people person in that sense. She's a bloody good at admin, Gavin being the maitre d', his role, it's interesting because when Gavin was a hairdresser that trained with Richard back in the King's Road, Neville Daniel, back in the day, which was a whole nother story. But Gavin was a fabulous hairdresser, and he left to be personal hairdresser to Anita Roddick, who was the founder of Body Shop, and went all over the world with her. Then when that sort of came to its end, he would sort of moonlight a little bit in London, but he was doing a degree in women's psychology. And I begged him constantly when we first opened to come and work with us. He completely said, no, I don't want to do hairdressing anymore. He'd been through a really difficult life experience. One of his best friends had died. So he'd wanted to refocus, and he didn't want to do hairdressing anymore. He wanted to do something quite meaningful, as you do when you go through something like that. So I just said to him, and he just said, "You're driving me mad." I said, "You're going to have to come and work with us. Just do it." So I said, "I want you to be front of house." And in those days, we were like one of the first salons to have that. I mean, they'd had it before in the super salons of the 70s, like the House of Leonard and all of those had that sort of thing. But it had sort of gone away from that a little bit. And I wanted to get back to that because I loved that idea. And so he said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, I'll give you a one-word job description, and that's schmooze. Schmooze everything. Schmooze the team, schmooze the clients, schmooze the staff, make sure it's all running properly. Okay. And he likens his role to carrying the Olympic torch. He says to the team, when you've got clients visiting the salon for multiple services, of course, the problem that you're going to get is timing issues and the client coming back late or early, or somebody else doesn't know where the client is. So Nick is great in the bar because he's keeping an eye on who's sitting there, if they've been sitting there too long. He's wonderful for that, and everybody adores him. But Gavin's role is to really remind the team that when they're taking control of that client, they're carrying the Olympic torch, right? And all the time that client is in their care, who they're going to next, whether their food has arrived, if they're on time, whether their dog wants a bowl of water, everything is their responsibility. And so that's how we train the team to say that customer is in your care. Everything about that customer during the time she's with you is your responsibility. Everything. Yeah. And I suppose that's how we are able to get the service that we want, that we have to have, because we don't get the price point unless we get the service.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now, in line with that, a lot of UK hairdressers will know that you have some of the royal family as clients. So two things. Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And what What sort of impact does that have on your business, as well as it being a great privilege and an honour to be, having the royal family as clients? Does it have a business impact?
It would have much more of a business impact if we could actually talk about what they
Yeah.
have done, which is such a shame that we can't. But of course, we're bound by very strict confidentiality agreements. I think the interesting thing, so we do Catherine, Princess of Wales, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. We do Prince William, and we do the children, Catherine and William's children. And other members of the royal family. There are other members of the royal family that do as well. So the interesting thing about our price tiering is that originally Catherine's mother came in, and Catherine would go and see the younger people in the salon. And this is what we find with a lot of our clients, that the mums come in, and because we've got the cheaper price point, their children will go to the cheaper price point, and then they will move up with those stylists as they go up the ranks. And that's really the job when we have our young people coming in. We say to them, you will get a lot of clients because you're on a cheaper price point, but as you move up the ranks, it's your job to keep those customers with you. I digress. But yes, we're very, very proud of that. So Richard, we're very proud that we've been doing Catherine since, before she met Prince William, before any of that happened. And it's wonderful, and it's a privilege, and it was really sad because Richard's mum passed away quite a while ago, but Richard's dad died just before the royal wedding, and he'd have been so proud of him.
I'm sure. Who wouldn't be? How does that work? Out of curiosity, do they come into the salon? Do you have like private rooms, or is it a home visit that you do? What's the sort of logistical?
We do have private rooms, but unfortunately these days it's harder and harder. So no, we see them outside of the salon. Sometimes in the salon, but predominantly outside of the salon.
Right. And is it the same person that they have all the time?
No, interestingly, which is just goes to show that our ethos works, because we have a small team, so that if someone's not available, somebody else can look after.
Yeah. Okay, it's interesting.
I mean, they have their favourites,
of course they do. Yeah. You mentioned before, you were talking about general manager and different roles, back office people. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I'm sort of thinking that, you have a big business, like, 100 odd staff under one roof. When you've got that sort of infrastructure, you obviously have to have a lot of, there's someone looking after marketing, there's someone looking after payroll, there's someone looking after PR, etc. What are some of the...
Yeah, that's me.
Right, okay, so is that just your job description I've so far touched on?
Well, you know what it's like, Anthony. You've been there. We have roles and responsibilities, but when it's a family business like that and it's your own business, if the toilet's blocked, the toilet's blocked. Whoever's free to go and unblock the toilet will unblock the toilet. Okay. So I'll be unpacking boxes sometimes, but yes, we try and stick to our roles and responsibilities. I think the business before COVID, we did have an in-house PR, we had an in-house marketing, we had to make redundancies, we had to trim the business right back, and we've never really scaled back up again, because I think what we've realised is that, I think with social media as well, the tone of voice has to be right. So outsourcing any of that, it's very difficult for someone to get your tone of voice right. So Sam, who works alongside me, she does all our IT, will do the website, but I'll write the content of the website. Julie's GM, so she's bills and HR. I mean, we all do a bit of everything. But yeah, I think we all prefer to work like that, because we're much more... Sometimes I think it turned into a bit of a monster before, and sometimes you can feel quite out of touch, and when you feel a bit out of touch and not in control of things, that's not good for someone like me, because I need to be in control. But I think I have learnt pushing 57 as I am now, that you can't keep playing all the bloody instruments yourself. You've got to learn to be the conductor, right?
That's a good way of putting it. I know that you have an office in the salon.
Yeah, that's really important to
I
me.
was gonna.
I cannot work
I
from
can
home.
imagine that, or if not at home, off-site. You need to be in where the action is. I suppose
Totally.
what I was going to ask you was this: is that most people don't have a salon with 100 staff. Most people have got 5, 6,
Yeah.
7, 8, maybe 10 staff, whatever it is. And a challenge that salon owners always grapple with is, how do they let go of certain stuff? How do they outsource? How do they delegate? When do they employ an office manager? That sort of stuff. I know that you've written books. I know that you work as an educator, and you do speaking engagements, etc., to the industry. How do you advise a salon owner to grow into those positions as their business is growing?
Yes. It's a challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's my pet hate when someone says, I'm a hairdresser, and you go, right, so hold on. So when are you making time to do your, because let's just have it right. Whatever issues I would have the same issues if I had 3 staff as if I had 103 staff. The scale is just
Yeah.
bigger. And I think I'm not a lover of ego, right? So that when I'm normally on stage, the first thing I say is, it's really hard running a salon. I'm not a person that says, oh, do what I do, it's so easy. Ah, I hate that. I hate hearing about people's successes. I'm a person that learns more from hearing about people's failures, business people's failures. I like to hear, I faced this issue, this is how I got over it, then aren't I fantastic? I can't relate to that. So going back, what I say to everyone that I teach and consult with is to say, I will go into work tomorrow and face exactly the same issues as everybody else. Everybody else, I'll have exactly the same issues. The scale of them will just be larger.
Right.
So I don't think, the next thing I say is, the minute you've become a business owner and people ask you what you do, you are not a hairdresser anymore. You are a business owner who happens to work in the hairdressing sector. And if you reframe what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in that way, you will realise that you have to have time to run your business. Richard Branson does not push the drinks trolley up and down the Virgin flight to New York.
Heaven forbid.
He doesn't do it. He has to delegate
Yeah.
it. But, what you will do is catch him on the odd flight, checking out everything's all right. So I think when people say, but I haven't got time to do that because I'm running a column of clients and I'm fully booked and I'm putting money in the till, and I go, but you are not a hairdresser anymore. You can still do your clients, but unless you cut your hours down, charge more for your time, delegate your customers to your team, because as long as they're coming into the salon, it doesn't really matter that they're not seeing you anymore, and actually take the time to get to grips with the business. Nothing runs itself, not even a tap. Nothing runs itself. So I'm not a believer in, well, I'm a hairdresser, I haven't got time to do it all. The first thing I say to people, unless you are willing to start your first client at 11 and finish at 4, and delegate those clients that can't get in with you to other people, and take a bit longer on your clients and have some time in between each one to deal with the stuff that goes on, you'll burn out and you'll be useless.
Yeah.
And you'll be a burnt out hairdresser trying to run a business and falling apart.
Yeah.
You have to make time. And it's interesting because hairdressers have a mental block with that a lot of the time. And somebody I once that came on my course said, she said, oh, you're so true. She said, but the other day I marked myself out for the morning, went into the office in her business. I can't remember where it was, small business somewhere. And she said, and when I came back out in the afternoon, a couple of the team said, oh, you've had an easy morning then in the office. And I said, easy money. How do they know that you haven't been sitting there thinking how you're going to pay the rent?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah.
that's your fault that they have that perception, because you can't be a good boss unless you give yourself the time to do
Mm,
it.
mm. What was the first position as your business grew that you delegated, back office job? What was the first role that you got someone else to take on?
So that would have been
Payroll,
payroll.
right? Okay, yeah, yeah.
Mm. Because I think payroll is a bit of a useless use of your time. I think VAT
Mm,
returns, accounts, any of that is really useful, because even processing the numbers, you get a real feel for it.
mm,
But working out someone's wages is just not, it's not a productive use of time.
yeah.
So I'd always outsource payroll, and that was definitely the first thing I
Right.
outsourced.
Okay. When I was looking through your website, I came across a category called guest artist, and I thought, well, that's interesting.
Yes.
So I had a little dig in there to see what a guest artist was. Um, Talk to us about that, because that I was intrigued by that, and I hadn't seen that in the UK. I know there's a bit more of that in the US, but tell us what a guest artist means in your business and how it came about.
So basically, that is people who want to come into the salon and maybe have a room for a day, a treatment room for a day to do acupuncture or Reiki, or they are predominantly running a business somewhere else. Or Alexander, for instance, he's on our guest artist page. He lives in Manchester, but he'll come down and do a column of clients. So it's people that are not sort of full time; they're not in the business all the time, and we couldn't really figure out how to market people so that people were really clear, customers were really clear that people are not in the salon all the time. And we also wanted to sort of diversify. I mean, if I'm not very good at, if we're going to do something, I want to get someone who's really, really
Mm,
good. So, for instance, Imran was my acupuncturist after my first pregnancy. And I basically just said, I need you to come, I need to see you. And I'm going to have to give you a treatment room because I haven't got time to come and see you otherwise. And he's been with us for 20 years. So it's that sort of thing. And he just comes and does his clients a couple of days a week. And it sort of works well with us. And we've had some really interesting, you know, contributions to our service
mm.
offering through doing that.
So are they have their own business elsewhere, or they work elsewhere as well? So, like for example, I think you said his name is Alexander. He lives in Manchester. Does
Yeah,
he work in a salon in
yeah,
Manchester 2 or 3 days a week, and then work in
yeah,
London
yeah,
two or three
yeah.
days a
He
week? That sort of
works
thing.
maybe from home and does his own thing, and then just comes to see us. And when he's in London, he'll work with
Right.
us.
Okay. Is that a
So it works quite
is that a
well.
thing that you see happening more and more now?
Well, unfortunately I do. In the UK, we have seen such a decline, such a rise in chair rental businesses, and I think there is a real need for clarification. I just need to sort of, because some of your viewers, listeners might know that I do a lot of work. I formed Salon Employers Association, and we've just formed the British Hairdressing Consortium, so that we're all coming together as a voice for the industry, just to make sure that we get the guidance we need. And it's not that I'm anti-change or anti um, self-employment. I'm not. I just want it to be done properly and so that it's fair. And I don't think that salon owners have the right information. There's not enough clarity around what that needs to look
Mm.
like for it to be successful. And that really needs to happen urgently in the UK, because if we don't get to grips with this and sort it out, what we'll see is a rise in disguised employment.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to the employee either.
Yeah.
So if you have hair salon A and hair salon B, and hair salon A is proper PAYE and people are employed, and even if they're on all of my staff earn a basic or a percentage. and they take whichever is the greater amount. So it means that there's no cap on their earnings, and they can, earn what they like. And our top employer has a turnover and, puts £10,000 a week in the till. So they do very nicely, thank you, out of that, which is great. But if you have Salon A operating like that, or even just paying national minimum wage, and you have Salon B where the owner says, right, you're all self-employed, but I tell you what, you need to work Tuesday, and you can't have Wednesday off, and you've got to come in on Friday. That's disguised employment. And that causes an issue for salon owner A, because salon owner A then has a lot of their staff saying, well, I'd like to be self-employed. But what they don't realise is that salon owner B, if they're not doing it properly, and this is where there needs to be a lot more guidelines, because the guidelines are so outdated, if they're not doing it correctly, the liability for any unpaid NI falls not just with the landlord, who is now a landlord at Salon B, but the people that are working in Salon B. So putting all that aside, the biggest issue is that Salon B, with the chair rental, cannot, unless they run a PAYE system, employ apprentices. So we're seeing this massive downturn in the number of apprenticeships. And pre-COVID, it was something like 19,000. And the latest figures we have is now 5,000 young people taking up a hairdressing apprenticeship a year. So a quarter of what it was just 4-5 years ago.
Plummeting.
Now, if that isn't a red flag to the government, and isn't something that people like me need to constantly be reinforcing and telling them, you will not get those numbers back. Now, that's not all due to Salon B and Salon A.
Yeah.
A lot of that is due to the mindset of COVID and young people and how they want to live their lives. But we need to be very aware of it, because the chair rental and the work hub thing, they're not going to employ an apprentice. They're just not.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Now, I want to dig into something, but I didn't want to interrupt you there while you're in mid-flow. But you mentioned NI. People outside the UK won't be aware of what you mean. So can you
so that's national insurance.
Yeah, national.
So that's national insurance contributions which you would pay, and that's your contribution towards your state pension when you get it, and all the government things like, the rates and the roads and hospitals and everything else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I do want to dig into some of those other areas around that. But before I move on to that, I just want to ask you one thing. You've talked a lot about, and I know you've got amazing team retention, which is fantastic. And people, when they hear that you've got staff that have been with you for 20 plus years, etc., they'll be sort of thinking, oh my God, how on earth do you manage to do that? So what's the most important thing that you've learned, just as a quick summary of about being a great leader and building a great team? Like what is the essence of what you need to do that as a salon owner?
I think you have to, the lesson I learned with this is really appreciating people's skill sets and not trying to make the perfect person. If someone isn't good at X, but they're brilliant at Y, embrace the Y bit and forget about the X bit. Stop trying to correct. So even in terms of technically, if someone shows an aptitude for like bridal hair, send them on every bridal hair course that there is. Cultivate that skill. So then you get an expert. Instead of saying, you're good at bridal hair, but your barbering's not very good, so let's worry about the barbering. That took me a long time, because you need to do that not only with their technical side and their skill set, and let some things go. So I'm very much not just with their technical skill sets, but with their emotional skill sets, their managerial skill sets. Some people are brilliant educators, but they don't like admin. Take the admin off them. And I think that I learned that actually it's better for everyone to go, you don't like that, so don't do it. You do like that, so do it. And then upskill on the bits they like, rather than trying to upskill on the bits they're not very good
Okay.
at.
What?
When that penny dropped with
Yeah.
me, that's what changed our
Okay.
business.
What about though taking that same logic and applying it to applying it to say retail, rebooking, treatments, all that really sexy, glamorous stuff that as a salon owner, you're looking at those numbers and looking at those metrics. You're not going to tell me that you see that Anthony's a stylist and he does zero in retail one week, and Mary Ann next to him's a stylist and she's doing £500 or £600 a week in retail. You're not going to shrug your shoulders and go, "Ho hum, Anthony's not good at retail."
Oh, but you know what? That's where you're right.
Really?
I would.
Okay. Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nando doesn't sell any retail at all. He hasn't got time.
Right.
If you're going to turn over 10 grand a
Yeah.
week,
Yeah. Forget
forget
about.
it. I'm not
Okay.
going to
Yeah.
bust
Yeah.
his BALLS
Yeah.
for not selling any retail. So, no, of course I want it.
Yeah.
Of course I will do what I call the safety check. Now, that is, when you get on a flight and they go, oxygen mask will come from the ceiling, fasten your seatbelt, la, 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 la. I'm still going to say it, but I'm also going to just go, you know what? You do you.
Yeah, if you're making up for it in another area. I used to do something similar. I had 5 metrics that I would look at, and I'd say, look, as long as you're hitting 4 out of 5 of them. So yeah, look, their retail may not have been good, but their treatments or their rebooking or their
or their
average bill or something.
Them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit of give and take.
So I just think, it's flex, isn't it? It some people just, it's like the, I don't know if you've seen Wolf of Wall Street when he says, "Sell me the pen."
Yeah.
And the bloke just and then says, "Give me your phone number." "Oh, I need a pen." And that's how people need a pen. You've got to sell the need rather than sell me the pen.
Yeah. No, that
I
great
think
movie.
hairdressers get the Wolf of Wall Street bit and they go, "I can't sell them any products." Whereas if they were doing my hair and they just said, and then I said, "Oh, what do you think I need? Do I need a bit of All Bay in there?" They'd happily go, "Oh, that's perfect for you." So I just think it's that. And I try and just go, you know what?
But retail is a big part of your business. If the imagery of how big the retail area is, I mean, so as a percentage of your total revenue, how much of it will come from retail? 5%. Wow. Okay. So
is that less than you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I thought you would have been like 10, 12, 15%, whatever, because you've got a lot of retail there, different brands, beauty and hair, etc. So I would have thought there'd be more than that. So that's interesting. You mentioned the word flex before, and before we have to start wrapping up, we've both been in the industry a while and we've seen lots of different business models come and go. We see the industry evolving and changing, and that's just par for the course. You can't stop that. You have to embrace it and look for ways to make it work. So if you're talking today about today's young 20-year-old, I mean, when I was 20 or when you were 20, it was a very different, I mean, we weren't 20 at the same time, just to be clear on that. You were a glint in someone's eye.
Oh, I would.
But the point of what I'm saying is that the 20-year-old you're employing today, they have a very different needs and expectations about work-life balance, mental health, yada, 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 compared to the 20-year-old that you employed in the 80s and 90s. So how has your business evolved in terms of catering for, flexibility? What flexibility do you offer people? Can they work 2 days a week, 3 days a week? Can they, you tell me, what is the flexibility at Richard Ward for employees?
Yeah, I think when I became a mum, I really realised that the way I want to work is going to be an ever-changing thing, and I'm very flexible with anyone with their work-life balance. I feel that you have to be these days. What we have 2 dynamics. We have a lot of our female employees are becoming mums and dads, parents, and the men are taking time off for that as well. And we have also the fact that we're all getting on a bit. We all want to work in a different way. So some of my team have got a place, bought a home abroad, or their parents are elderly and they're looking after them. And so the way they want to work is different. They know, I think I let them lead it because they know how much money they need to make things work. And they know whether they can make same money, if they do less days or do full days and less days per week, or, maybe start at 11 and finish at 4, or I leave it to them. I really honestly do. I think we've all been together so long. Don't do anything you don't want to do. Do what suits you. And especially the parents who are, all our lives are constantly changing. But I particularly pick on the mums and say, when my children were very small, I needed to go in every day, but could only do a few hours. As they grew up, it was actually easier to go, actually, I want to do more full days and have 2 or 3 days off a week, complete days off. So we're very flexible. I absolutely let the team lead it. What I'm also flexible about with my young people, for instance, Kat, she qualified with us, did like 4 years training, and then said, I want to have a gap time. I want to go off. I want to see that. I just want to do it. And I said, okay, do it. I'll leave your job open for you. Take 3-4 months, however long you want. And if you don't want to come back, don't come back. And if you do want to come back, I'll hold your job open for you.
Right, okay. And
I don't think I could be a more fairer employer than that.
Yeah, okay. So what about for young employees who say, well, I want to do hairdressing, but I don't want to do Saturdays. How does that go down?
Well, it's okay. I mean, look, length of service is important to me. So
it's a privilege.
I would let the people that have been with me the longest decide what they want to do, and other people would have to fit around that. But, Thursday's our busiest day of the week now, since COVID. Thursday's mobbed. Wow. Saturday is not as busy as it ever used to be. It's still busy, but it's not as busy. And I think, interestingly, my children are 24 and 21, 23 and 21. And having them as a sounding board is really helpful because they know the world as it is now. This Gen Z or millennials or whatever, they know the world as they're experiencing it now. It's very difficult for someone of my age to make any sort of comment on the mindset of young people, because when I was their age, I knew the world as I knew it then, and it was a different place. So I'm very fortunate that I have them as a sounding board to say, what do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? Would you, if we made that a company rule, would you think that's okay or not? And they have been a brilliant sounding board for me. And their minds work in a totally different way. And I say to a lot of my older team, we're giraffes and they're zebras.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand we're different. And as long as we know we're different and we think in a different way, and there's no point going, when I did my training, I got a clip round the ear with a hairbrush if I didn't do it right, which I did. Because they're going to go, what?
Who cares?
So I think you do have to, if you want to be an employer in this modern world, especially with a young workforce, which our sector traditionally has, you do have to embrace the fact that you're different. There's no wrong, there's no right, but you will not think in the same way as they think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way, a good place to finish up on things. Whereabouts can people connect with you? On Instagram or website, other social media channels?
Yes, Hellen Ward Limited is my Instagram, and I have got a website called Hellen Ward as well. I do my books are on Amazon, but I don't tend to do much education anymore because my parents are elderly, and I'm at that stage in my life where I've wedged in the middle of looking after elderly parents, pre-grandchildren, got to get out there and live a life before the grandchildren come, and try and run the business as well. So I'm a busy girl.
Yeah.
Let's put it like that.
Okay.
But yes,
All right.
connect.
Well, I'll put those links on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, and in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast with Helen and you have enjoyed it as much as I have, do me a favor, share it to your social media platforms or friends that you know who would benefit from it, because I think there's a lot of great wisdom there. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Helen Ward, any final words before I let you go?
Yes, I just want to say, just to dispel a myth, I am actually a hairdresser, because people don't know that about me. And we didn't even get time to talk about how I started, but I did start as a hairdresser, and I am a hairdresser. I'm the world's worst hairdresser. Don't go anywhere near me. But I think that has been a massive part of our success, that I have put a colour on. I do know how to run a column, I've cut hair, I can do all those things. And I do think being at that sort of coalface is really important as a background to then growing your business. I think you have to have lived every experience on that salon floor to be really good at your job.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you, Helen Ward, for being on this week's episode
Thank you.
of the Grow My Salon Business podcast.
Thanks so much, Anthony. It's been a joy.
Cheers.